Okay. Hello, everybody, and hello, Jan.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Good, very good. So we have Jan Kabili here, a photographer, author, and educator. And do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show, and best of luck with your new Google Plus Hangout show. It sounds really fun.
Thank you.
So I am an author, an educator, and a photographer, and I've been doing all of this for, now almost coming up on 15 years. Before that, I was a lawyer, if you can believe that.
Wow.
I know.
Very different.
I know.
Very different.
It was, and just by serendipity and by opening myself up to opportunities, things segued into these terrific opportunities that I've had not only to make my own creative life, but also to share it with other people.
Nice.
And mostly what I do now is I record courses and tutorials that help people learn what to do after they take a photo, what to do in Photoshop and Lightroom and other post-processing applications.
Excellent. Excellent. So do you want to show us what you're currently working on, course-wise and creative projects-wise?
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
So right now you should be seeing what I consider my major body of work, and I'm very proud of this. It's a number of courses here on the lynda.com online training library.
Great.
Can you see that?
Yeah, looks great. Looks great.
Great. So I've been doing this work for, gosh, over 10 years now of developing, authoring, and then recording courses about Photoshop and Lightroom and Photoshop elements. And if I slide down, I can take you on a little trip through the past through courses that show the basics of Lightroom, of elements, all the way back through, now get this, we're going back now, we're at Elements 11, Elements 10, Elements 9, and if I go way down to the beginning, courses on Photoshop CS4. I was very fortunate to have done the Essential Training course, which is the main lynda.com course on Photoshop that year, as well as courses about layers in depth and layer masks in depth and selections in depth. And even though those courses are a couple years old, they still are completely relevant because, with Photoshop, Adobe adds to the features there, but very seldom removes anything. Right. So we go up through time and all of the great, opportunities I've had to show more and more features and share more and more what I know about how to use these programs, because I'm a firm believer that your creative output is not just a matter of snapping photographs. It is what you do with them afterwards. And that's particularly true if you're shooting raw, as I hope that many people are, because at that point, really, you just have ones and zeros that have been converted via a standard formula into something that you can see on screen. And you almost have an obligation to manipulate it, to enhance it at that point.
Excellent. Yeah, great variety. Looks like a great variety of courses.
It is, and I think I've actually recorded 40 courses. A couple aren't up here yet,
Right.
And I'm very excited about a new thing that I'm doing will be called Photo Tools Weekly, and it will be a weekly tutorial that people will be able to see on the front page of lynda.com, and those will be in a compendium over time. Each week I'll show another way to do something really useful, practical, and creative with your photos in Photoshop, Lightroom, mobile apps, other editing apps. So that's going to be really fun.
Great, great.
So that's all my lynda.com work. And then, as if I had any other time, haha, I have started my own podcast. And I guess, Andrew, it's a kind of competitor to yours.
I think yours is probably a little bit more professional looking than mine. So.
Well, the reason it might be professional looking is that I'm very lucky to have hooked up with Frederick Van Johnson, who has been broadcasting the podcast This Week in Photo, or TWIP, for a number of years. Are you familiar with Frederick?
Yeah, of course. A good friend on Facebook as well. So.
Well, he is a mastermind, and his podcast TWIP, or This Week in Photo, was so successful that he decided to expand his podcast into a network of podcasts, all about different aspects of photography, and he included a new podcast that I'm doing called The Fix. And again, it's about Photoshop, Lightroom, and other ways to process your photos. And I interview all the many people I've had the good fortune to meet over the years in the industry, and they show tutorials, and we also talk. So we have something for the audio audience as well as the video audience. So here you can see just a couple of the episodes that are on the front page of thisweekinphoto.com. One with Karen Hutton, where she takes us through how she makes her wonderful landscape and composite photos. A session I did with Sean Kernan, who is a master photographer. His work is hanging in galleries and museums all over the world. And he was talking to us about being creative as a photographer, something relevant for your podcast as well. Yeah. Another one here with Sean Duggan, a great photographer and lynda.com author, and lots more. So that's my latest effort, thisweekinphoto.com/thefix.
Excellent.
And then, somewhere in between all of that, I wrote this book last year.
Busy, very busy.
I know. I don't know if I can make this bigger so you can see it. Yes.
Yep.
I was contacted to write a book for Peach Pit Press, one of the Adobe classrooms in a book, which are the official, kind of the replacements for manuals. They don't have manuals anymore. And this one is all about using Lightroom and Photoshop together as photographers. I think that this is a very important subject that a lot of people don't really understand. When to use Lightroom, when to use Photoshop, when you need to use them together, and then the rather too complex process of how to make them work together. And so there's enough there to say to fill a whole book, and that is a book that you can buy a print copy at Amazon, or you can buy an ebook from, I believe, on the Peach Pit Press website, probably for Kindle as well.
Yeah, that seems essential, Good balance between the two, yeah.
It is, and it's kind of confusing, but it's really important.
Excellent.
So, did you want to see actually some things I've made in addition to my creative education? Okay.
Yeah, show some of your photos or creative.
I'd love to. So here I am. Whoop, we don't want to see that. Here I am in Lightroom.
Okay, looks good.
So and this is probably more a factor of having other things to do. I'm so busy all the time that I find that I do my best work when I'm traveling. And so you might say I've become a traveling photographer, or a travel photographer more than anything. Although I don't really believe in genres, but that's when I do a lot of photography. So this is just a small sampling of some photographs that I've taken on recent travels. Nice. And thank you. What I try to do is I'm not looking for the iconic shot. I'm always sort of looking around behind the scenes, either looking for interesting compositions or shapes like this, or looking for those things that are hidden, like, this one, this graffiti that isn't right out there, it's hidden. And I don't know why, but that interests me. That's what catches my eye. Those little hidden corners off down the alley.
Beautiful.
This is one I manipulated. It's kind of out of sequence.
Reminds me like a Monet painting or something, or Cézanne or something.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind. It's what I did here is I took this photo into Photoshop and I added a texture on top of it, something that's pretty easy to do. And it's done primarily by adding a blending mode to a texture layer. And a texture could be something that you photograph. It could be something that you buy online. It could be something that you draw on a piece of paper and then scan in. And I think they really give interest to photos. And I think all I did here after I did that was maybe brighten it up and add a little vignette around the edges.
Excellent. Yeah, nice.
Thank you. I like to photograph light. I have a friend who says, photography is all about light. And you can take a photograph of something not too interesting as long as you have fantastic light on it. It can make it very interesting.
It's what moves the eye, right? The light points.
Exactly. And I like to do play with foreground and background as well. I think a lot of times you see some terrific looking landscape photographs. Well, there's kind of an example. Something interesting in the background, but if there isn't something in the foreground to direct the viewer's eye, the eye can just sort of wander around a big scene and not have a place to rest.
Nice.
And then I also like amazing places. Look at this. This is a bar. You can sit on the rocks. Isn't that amazing?
That looks like a lot of fun. Just don't fall in, though.
That's fantastic. It was really hard. I only had about 2 seconds to photograph before they shooed me away, and there were those terribly bright lights, but I just thought it was such an amazing place. It's in a town called Rovinj in Croatia.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that was really fun. And here is an example of talking about light. There's nothing particularly wonderful. It's, you know, a nice ceiling, but it is, like, for me, the play of light on the ceiling that makes it, that caught my eye.
Excellent, beautiful.
And there's some wacky looking, what is that, fountains that over time they grew those limestone things coming out of their mouth.
Yeah, wow.
So I love stuff like that. Yeah.
Nice texture to it too.
Thank you. So let's see. Is that it? Do you want more? Or...
It's up to you. But that's pretty good variety.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, then shall I come back?
Yeah, and I'll bring back the regular screen. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. I'm going to have to get out of here. So many things to close.
I was going to say, I think it's a nice balance when you're that busy to have creative projects to kind of give you a break away from all the kind of focused technical work.
It is. And, you know, also, I really think you have to practice what you preach. You know, a lot of what I talk about when I'm helping other people are things that I've run into myself. And if I didn't shoot as much as I could, I don't think I would understand the kinds of problems that people are really having in real life. You know, yeah, I could show cool, fun techniques, but really what you want to do is help people around those stumbling blocks that everybody stumbles on.
Great point. Okay. So besides, you know, seeing your current projects, can you recall a favorite creative project of yours in the past?
I can. I was so lucky to have spent some time in graduate school as an adult in a fine art program, and it was a photography fine art program here at University of Colorado at Boulder, and it really is one of the premier programs with some serious photographers and teachers who have been at it for a long time, since the 70s, when photography first became accepted as a fine art, at least in universities, as, you know, a subject to teach. Right. So that whole experience was an amazing creative experience in itself, because I had come into that as what's a lawyer? A left brain person?
Right.
And then here I was in graduate school in photography and trying to exercise the other side of my brain. And it was very intimidating, particularly because most of the people there had come from an art background, and I had not. And it was very liberating and really exciting to find out that I had inside of me, you know, creative power. And it made me start to really believe that pretty much everybody has that. You know, we certainly have it when we're young. Everybody loves to draw and make pictures and, you know, look what I made, Mommy. And then we tend to bury it as we get older, become ashamed of it or embarrassed, or we think it's not as good as everybody else's. So that experience of taking time out from my crazy life, focusing on art, on being creative, listening to my inner self, and letting my creative juices flow out was absolutely fantastic. And I hope that other people, you know, have some kind of similar experience.
Nice. Yeah, I think, you know, for a lot of people, the creating is a form of like therapy, a visual therapy to, you know, stay connected to the dance of life in certain ways when things get a little hectic and busy, you know.
Yes. Well, you know, you're the same way. You're doing a lot of things, but I also see online that you're constantly making art and posting it, aren't you?
Yeah. I have the blog, and so with the blog I always update my digital art or my photography, and I've been getting into photography more than I ever had before. And it's interesting how life is. I sort of starting to get a little bit of symptoms of carpal tunnel, so for me, getting into photography was essential. And so I just kind of took it as a sign, and then started taking a lot of creative photographs, which I realized I could do similar kind of montage elements with reflections in windows and storefronts and whatnot. So.
Terrific. And you have to remember, you're still going to get carpal tunnel if you sit there, even with photographs. So you got to get up and move around and do other things too.
You can't win.
I know.
So, so what future projects would you like to work on, or are you working on?
Wow. You know, this may sound funny, but I actually would love to just continue what I'm doing. Right now, at this point in my career, I've reached a point where I have so many exciting opportunities and offers to do things that I love. And if somebody said, well, what have you not done that you would like to do? It's really hard for me to think of something, because really I've done so many different takes on this process of making art and sharing it and sharing the skills with other people. Everything from writing books to recording courses to speaking to teaching in art workshops. So this summer, for example, I'm going to an art workshop in Aspen, Colorado called the Anderson Ranch Arts Center, where I love to teach because it is a real art camp, a real art workshop. And it is not just about photography, but all different kinds of art. So you get to collaborate with and interact with all kinds of serious artists. So I'll be doing that. I'm teaching Lightroom up there. And then, and that's in July 20th, I believe. So if people are interested in meeting with me live and really digging in and not being distracted by other things, I can assure you that at the end of 5 days with me, intense days, day and night, you will know Lightroom, and you will go home with some really great looking photos. We have great printers there, and we print them out as well.
Excellent. Right.
So I'm doing that, and then this is even better. And then I'll be quiet. In August, I am going on a cruise ship where I'll be teaching computer arts on the cruise ship.
Wow.
And
nice.
Isn't that cool? And that's going to be 2 different cruises in Scandinavia and over to St. Petersburg in Russia and Estonia and all these great places that I might not go otherwise.
Beautiful.
So I'm very excited. And that's Crystal Cruises. So if you're at all interested, look at the Crystal Cruises. And one of the many things that they do is they have kind of little computer art teaching along with the wonderfulness of the cruise.
Excellent. Yeah, great. Sounds like a lot of great projects you're working on, great projects coming up, fun photography, nice travels. I want your life. I want to travel around like you. So.
Well, here's the thing, I didn't just come born with this life. Like, I worked hard to get it, right. But the main thing I did, Andrew, is I opened myself up to it. I just said, Jen, you can get off the straight and narrow. I was like a serious lawyer. I went to the boring law school. I did the whole thing. And I just said, open the doors and see what comes in.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice. And so therefore, so where can people find you? Do you want to talk about your website and other ways that they can see your work or see updates as to what you're doing next?
Yes. Well, the best places to go to find me are Google+, where I spent a lot of time, Facebook, and for both I'm Jan Kabili, and then also the lynda.com website. I have my own page there. It's lynda.com, lynda.com/Jan Kabili, all one word. And I do hope that people will tune into the Fix podcast on the TWIP network. And to get there, it's thisweekinphoto.com/thefix. And even better, subscribe on iTunes.
Excellent. Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll try to, if you can remind me, I will put a post in my Facebook Photoshop and Lightroom group and my new group on Google, or community on Google+, Photoshop and Lightroom for photographers.
Yeah, those are great Facebook groups. I actually look at those every day, and I love what you have going on there.
Thank you. Yeah, we're about to hit 98,000 in the Facebook group, and soon enough 100,000. So.
Good for you. You see, you're doing it.
Yeah. It's I do have the help of about 20 admins, and they're essential. They're very helpful and give good feedback and supportive. And there's times when you're just stressed out by it, and they put things into perspective. Very helpful. So.
Yeah, send some of them my way.
Yeah, right. I will. Thank you so much. This was nice. Very nice to see a view into your world. So thank you for sharing your time with us.
Well, thank you for asking me. It's really kind of you, and I'm really honored that you did.
Great. Have a wonderful week. Thank you, Jan.
Thanks, Andrew.